So we've got about 2 minutes to race now. I apologize beforehand to anyone's name that I don't get right as I'm reading the names of the racers in the boats. When you're trying to read quickly, especially in the 8th races, I do the best I can. So if I've gotten your name wrong, if you're listening to this later after you're done racing, I apologize for that. So now the coxswains are getting their points. You may see the coxswains will have the bow seat or the 2 seat scull the boat around, so they'll reach way out and move the boat by just tapping their oar a little bit into the water. You can see lane 3 is doing that right now. Lane 4 just did it as well, and now lane 5 will do it. So the coxswains are dealing with a slight crosswind today. The winds are out of the north, and that brought the cold temperatures. The cold front came through yesterday with the rain in the morning, and the temperature dropped. We lucked out on this. I think it's supposed to be a low of 40 degrees tomorrow morning. I think it was only going to get down to 48 or 50 degrees this morning. It could have been much colder tomorrow morning if we were doing this. So we've got pretty good conditions. The water is basically flat, just that little bit of a crossing tailwind. As I talked about, this course runs from northwest to southeast. So right now we are at the northwest end of the course, and the wind is actually blowing down that practice area and across the bows of the boat. So that will tend to push the bows of the boats to the right from our perspective, and that's why you'll keep seeing the coxswains pointing their bows back to the left to try and have the bow of the boat be centered right down the lane. And they're off. So here you get to see the start. Crews will usually run these starts at a higher stroke rate. They'll do usually 3 to 5 strokes to get the boats up and moving, to build the rate and build the boat speed. And then they will run at a high rate 20 or a high rate 15, depending on what the coach and the athlete's decisions tend to be. And then they will do a settle, where they settle to a lower stroke rate by about 4 strokes a minute. Right now, it looks like lane 3 is in the lead. That is Liberty, with Central Florida very close behind. And in lane 1, NC State is hanging tight with them. In lane 6, LSU is hanging tight with them. And in High Point, still in contact. It's early in the race. Lots of things can happen. We're 54 seconds in. Liberty is at a 37 stroke rate, 37 strokes a minute. 34 strokes a minute for Central Florida. So it looks like Liberty and Central Florida, with Central Florida slightly in the lead, are starting to separate themselves from the rest of the field. Both boats looking strong here. This is a great view we've got from the drone pilots. They just do a fantastic job. Central Florida is starting to edge out just a little bit with every stroke. Something you can watch for as you if you're learning the sport for the first time, as you look at the blade work of the oarsmen. In these boats, particularly in the 4s, they're what we call bow coxed 4s. The coxswain actually sits in the front of the boat, as opposed to in nearly all 8s, you'll see the coxswain in the back of the boat. So the coxswain actually sits down under the bow deck, and that gives them a nice view right down the center of the course, but it does not afford them a very good view of the rowers. Central Florida is still pushing out into the lead, looking very strong. .38 stroke rate. If my stroke watch is right, I'm not sure I believe that. 36 now, that's what it says. And 36 for Liberty, with Central Florida right now with about a 1-length lead over Liberty, and they have a couple length lead over the rest of the field. So now we've got a view from approximately the 1,000-meter mark. Once again, this is a 2,000-meter race. 2,000 meters is about 1 mile and 3/16. Looks like Liberty's trying to hold on here. trying to make a move back into Central Florida. Central Florida looks like they are in control of this race, though. From a rower's perspective, when you can get that much of a lead on the boat that's trailing you, you can always keep an eye on them. And as they start to make moves or as they start to work, you can match those moves. It gives you a little bit of extra time. So there we go, crossing the 1,000-meter mark. We're at the halfway point at 3 minutes and 41 seconds in, with a slight open water lead of Central Florida over Liberty, followed by LSU. And High Point and NC State bringing up the rear. Another great view from our drone pilots here. As you watch, also you can watch the steering of the coxswains. Their goal is to try and stay exactly in the center of the race, or in the center of the lane. Their lanes, again, are about 16 meters wide. So they do their best to do that. It's not always easy, again, with the wind, with the conditions, and with the variability in the rowers missing a stroke sometimes. The boat can kind of steer around on them, so they have to be on the rudder a little bit more than they want to be. But they definitely want to try and steer the straightest course possible right down the center of their lane. That is always the goal. In the third 500 right now, and I will say the same thing basically the rest of the day. This is when the taxman comes. So everything, all of that early work that you put in, especially with the high sprint at the start, the entire race is basically a sprint. You put yourself into some oxygen debt, and that is the debt that they are paying right now. So Central Florida opening up about a 3/4 of a length lead, open water over Liberty. Still looking strong. Everybody's sitting up. You can see the rowers are probably layered a little bit more today just because it's chilly. This is the C final, so the third level final for this event, the men's varsity 4. The A and the B finals will be later in the morning. Should be getting into the last 500 now. Liberty a little too far to the side of their lane. The coxswain may make a decision, though, to not change it and try and steer the straightest course. But it looks like since their oars were actually in the other boat's lane, they will probably try and move back to the center. So start to see some red buoys here. The red buoys mark the last 250 meters of the course. So the buoys will change colors, and then the rowers know that they are very close to the end of the race. At this point, they're all just hanging on and trying to empty their tanks to get to the finish line. There's a view of LSU in lane 6. You can see the fatigue. This is a hard sport. If you haven't done it, you barely get to see those nuanced differences. But if you really look, and you can see all those guys are very tired right now. All of the work that everybody puts in from August to the middle of May or June, depending on when people's racing season starts, all of that base they have to build to succeed in racing in the late spring. So we're in the red buoys now with Central Florida. And there's Central Florida across the finish line first, the winner of the C final. So this event, this final will set the 13th through the 20th places or 18th places. I can't do math this morning. Not enough caffeine. I apologize for that. Liberty in second. LSU takes third.